The first cell was not born in a warm, friendly pond. It was forged in a chemical war zone, and the evidence of that war sits in your body right now. The story you were told in biology class, a gentle primordial soup where molecules slowly learn to cooperate, is a sanitized myth. The real origin story is a record of betrayal, invasion, and near-total extinction, and it begins in the darkest, coldest place on Earth. You have seen the images of hydrothermal vents, black smokers billowing superheated plumes into the abyss. In 1977, when the submersible Alvin first descended to the Galápagos rift, the scientists on board were looking for heat. What they found was a violation of every assumption about life. The water temperature, measured directly at the vent orifice, reached 400 degrees Celsius. The pressure, at a depth of 2,500 meters, was over 250 times what you feel on the surface. And in that crushing, scalding darkness, where no sunlight had ever reached, there was life. Dense clusters of giant tube worms, their crimson plumes filtering hydrogen sulfide, and blind white crabs crawling over mineral spires. This discovery was not a confirmation of the warm pond theory. It was its execution. The warm pond is dead, and the vents have been the smoking gun all along. If you want to keep uncovering the real battlefield where life was forged, the chemistry textbooks never show you, subscribe to this channel. And tell me in the comments, which piece of evidence hit you harder? The vents that disproved everything, or the cyanide that was actually the key ingredient? The classic Miller-Urey experiment from 1953 created amino acids from simulated lightning in a reducing atmosphere. Every textbook shows those beautiful organic molecules forming in a flask, as if life was coaxed into existence by gentle sparks. But what the textbooks omit is that the same chemical pathways produce hydrogen cyanide in vast quantities. Hydrogen cyanide is a weapon. It is the agent of gas chambers, not gardens. And yet, in the thermal gradients of the early ocean, this poison was not a waste product, it was the key ingredient. Here is what nobody tells you. The first building blocks of life were not blessed nutrients. They were the survivors of chemical warfare. The molecules that persisted were the ones that could tolerate a bath of cyanide, formaldehyde, and sulfuric acid. If you have ever felt that the story of life's origin was too neat, too clean, too simple, you were right to be suspicious. The evidence points not to a nurturing cradle, but to a battlefield. In the subterranean chambers beneath the vents, where temperatures reach 150 degrees and the pH drops to a corrosive 3, RNA, the candidate for the first self-replicating molecule, performs a strange trick. Under extreme heat, RNA strands degrade quickly. But in the cold ocean water that surrounds the vent, at just 4 degrees Celsius, these same molecules can fold into stable shapes and catalyze their own duplication. The real spark was not heat. It was the violent transition between scalding death and freezing survival. That violent transition is the signature of life's earliest strategy. Not peace, but survival at the knife edge. You have followed the evidence this far. Now commit to seeing where the rest of the forensic trail leads. Subscribe to become one of the few who knows the real story. And drop a comment with the word cold if the freezing catalyst surprised you more than the scalding vent, or heat if the toxic chemistry still dominates your image of the primordial ocean. This is where the betrayal begins. The first protocells were not pure, isolated entities. They were colonies of traitors. Imagine a lipid bubble forming in an oily slick on the vent's surface. Inside that bubble, a mix of competing RNA strands, each fighting for the same scarce chemical resources. The usual story says these molecules cooperated. The forensic evidence shows otherwise. One strand would mutate to steal a phosphate from its neighbor. Another would shift shape to bind to a protein, effectively enslaving it. The protocell was not a harmonious beginning. It was a microscopic civil war, the first struggle for dominance, and we are the descendants of the victors. Now consider the crisis that nearly ended it all. 2.4 billion years ago, a group of bacteria evolved a new terrible ability: photosynthesis. This was not a gentle evolutionary step. It was a planet-wide assassination. These cyanobacteria released oxygen, a toxic waste product, into an atmosphere that had never contained it. For the existing anaerobic life, oxygen was a poison. The oceans, which had been rich in dissolved iron, began to rust. The iron precipitated out, forming vast banded iron formations, and the chemistry of the entire planet shifted. What followed was the Great Oxidation event, a mass extinction that wiped out perhaps 90% of all life on Earth. The first betrayal of life was not by an external catastrophe. It was by its own children, poisoning the air their ancestors breathed. But some cells survived by making a devil's bargain. One ancient archaeon swallowed a bacterium but did not digest it. Instead, the bacterium became a permanent resident, an endosymbiont, dedicated to processing oxygen for energy. This is the origin of the mitochondrion, the power plant inside every one of your cells. You are alive today because your ancestor made a deal with a captive parasite. Your cells are powered by a colony of enslaved bacteria, and your DNA carries the scars of that ancient betrayal. The warm pond story is not just wrong. It is a deliberate erasure of the violence that made you possible. And that violence is still visible in the machinery of your own cells. Look at the mitochondrion itself. It carries its own DNA, a circular genome distinct from the nuclear genome in the cell's main command center. That DNA is bacterial. It shares more sequence similarity with the Rickettsia bacteria that cause typhus than with your own nuclear chromosomes. Every time your cells burn glucose for energy, they are relying on a genetic instruction manual written by a foreign entity that your ancestor absorbed 2 billion years ago. The parasite inside you has never been fully integrated. It replicates independently, dividing on its own schedule. And when it fails, when mitochondrial DNA mutates, the result is neurological disease, muscle failure, and accelerated aging. Your life depends on a traitor colony whose loyalty is conditional. The same pattern of stolen chemistry defines your immune system. The very mechanism that allows your body to recognize foreign invaders, the major histocompatibility complex, or MHC, evolved from ancient viral proteins. Your immune cells present fragments of pathogens on their surface using a molecular system that was originally designed to assemble virus particles. You are protected from infection by a mechanism you stole from your enemy. Every time your body fights a cold, it uses equipment that once belonged to the virus itself. This is not evolution as improvement. This is evolution as scavenging, as battlefield looting, as making weapons from the remains of your dead. And then there is the telomere, the protective cap at the ends of your chromosomes. Every time your cells divide, the telomere shortens. After 50 to 70 divisions, it becomes so short that the cell can no longer divide at all. It enters senescence, or dies. This is why you age, but the enzyme that rebuilds telomeres, telomerase, is only active in germ cells, stem cells, and, significantly, cancer cells. The mechanism that could extend your lifespan indefinitely is locked away because it also enables tumors. Your body is a system of negotiated compromises between your own survival and the threat of rebellion. The warm pond promised cooperation. The evidence shows a permanent Cold War raging inside every cell. So when you look at a single cell under a microscope, you are not seeing a peaceful citizen of a primordial garden. You are seeing a contested territory, a lipid membrane that is a siege wall, a nucleus that is a command bunker, mitochondria that are captured energy factories, and an immune system built from viral blueprints. The origin of life was not a birth, it was a coup d'etat, and the coup never ended. It simply became you.